What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Right Side. Today, I want to welcome you to the first episode of The Right Report, a new series on the channel where every Friday will recap the past week's political news and events and give you guys my thoughts. But before we get into the video, subscribe or ring the bell if you want to support and help the channel grow. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So the first article of news that has really kind of blasted off this week is the ongoing riots going on in Britain. Now, for you those who don't know, this kind of was spurred on after three children were killed or stabbed to death at a dance studio for like a Taylor Swift party, and that has spurred on a massive wave of riots going on. Kind of going against immigration and all those kinds of things. The violence has spread to cities like London, Manchester, Belfast. In response, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called for a heightened police presence, especially with the start of the football season, which could further inflame tensions. And the situation remains volatile, and with authorities cracking down on misinformation, it's really been fueling the unrest. If you just look through all the news that's going on right now, I mean, the British police state is really racketing up their efforts to kind of control things. It's really hard to watch, I guess, in a sense. I, as an American, always kind of viewed Britain as a very peaceful country. Because here in the States, we always, we had the George Floyd riots in 2020. Or around there, and so we had the Rodney King riots, we had a bunch of those type of movements and riots, and practically every day in New York there's a riot with all the crime that's been going on over there. But to see this happening in Britain is kind of shocking. It's kind of like, wow, it's like watching that one family member that was always like kind of like controlled and calm and reserved, all of a sudden start lashing out and getting really aggressive and confrontational. So that's been quite a, thing coming from Britain. I know that immigration was a huge issue in their this past election cycle. When Starmer took it from Rishi Sunak, there was an emerging popularity within Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. I was very interested to see how they were going to do. Nigel Farage very much positioned himself as the British Trump, I wouldn't say anti-immigration, but smart immigration. That's not flood the country with migrants without assimilating and integrating them into a society. It's almost exactly the same message I echoed in my immigration video. These types of things happen when you don't control immigration and you just let them come in and you don't assimilate or integrate them into society. People think that you can have multiple cultures in one country and still function in a healthy way, and that's just not true. That's not the case. You need assimilation. You need integration. You need people to be united under one front. That is the country and the country's interests. You can't have fragmentation into a society that always leads to civil war. Yeah. The really unfortunate thing about this whole situation is that it's the uncontrolled immigration and the lack of assimilation and integration that causes these riots and thus fosters a atmosphere or environment of racism and, all that kind of stuff. People are a lot more warm to migrants and to immigrants if they come if they come in under a controlled system where they assimilate, accept the values of the country, and become one with the people. If you don't have that, and that doesn't happen, you have what's going on in Britain, where Britain's already a relatively small country, and so if you flood a small country with migrants, of course it's going to have downstream effects, quickly too. You're going to have stress on public services, and those migrants aren't going to be paying as much taxes as the other taxpayers. They're a net burden on the system. So, and if they're illegal, they ramp up on crime, because for illegal immigrants, once they step foot on land, they've already broken the law. So the crime rate with illegal immigrants is 100%. So when you look at what Britain's going through, Godspeed, what's going on in Britain. Keir Starmer's really got a mess on his hands, and They are going to ramp up police presence over the weekend, and that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see if the left over in Britain takes this opportunity, because as a wise Hillary Clinton once said multiple times, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so it'll be interesting to see if Keir Starmer and the establishment left over in Britain take advantage of this opportunity and really kind of seize some liberty from the British people. You never want to see countries go through something like this. It's horrible, but it's a reminder that whether or not these issues were caused by migrants or immigrants or whatever to such, uncontrolled and unfettered immigration without assimilation causes people to be this tense with minorities and with people who are migrants. When you have a uncontrolled immigration and people feel a sense of unease, and things like this happen, where you had the Southport stabbing, these types of backlashes or the public upheavals aren't surprising. It's in their eyes, in the citizens' eyes, it's a slap to the face from their own government. And so these types of events are their way of feeling like, hey, you know what? I don't know how else to, show my frustration with the system. And these innocent girls were just murdered. And the suspect was that was arrested, I think. So yeah, the suspect of the stabbing was arrested at the scene. He was a child of 2 Rwandan immigrants who came into the Southport area in 2013, and he was also diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So do with that as you will. Very interesting situation going on in London. Hope everything goes well, and I hope I don't have to talk about him next week. In other news, U.S. politics, Kamala Harris picks Tim Walz to be her VP pick. No doubt, almost nearly securing the election for Donald Trump. Walz is a governor of Minnesota, and to say that this guy is pretty radical is an understatement. We're talking about a guy who was endorsed by Bernie Sanders to be the VP pick, and self-admitted that his stance on abortion was too pro-choice for even Nancy Pelosi. So, he tried to attack J.D. Vance at the rally in which he was introduced as VP, as Midwestern and things like that. And he said something along the lines of, as all Midwesterners I know, J.D. Vance went to Yale. And the crowd, started laughing, which I get what he was saying, but that has a real sentiment of, these people. That type of comment has a real sentiment of these people shouldn't or don't go to Yale. Are you saying that Walz comment kind of gives off the vibes of that's very elitist. To say that these trailer park people in the Midwest, they go to Yale. That's what they do. As if they can't do better for themselves and to get themselves out of those situations, as J.D. Vance did, going to Yale, going to the military, becoming a public servant, very admirably. But Tim Walz, my gosh, she could not have picked a worse vice president. Although there are reports out that her other pick, who was going to be Josh Shapiro, governor of PA, was going to be almost a Gavin Newsom-esque snake in the grass, according to a lot of people, with him kind of wanting to shoulder or bring a lot of attention to him, overshadow her, and to kind of bolster his image so he can run again in 28. Crazy, but I honestly think that if she picked Shapiro, it would have been a much harder race for Trump to win. Shapiro is pretty popular in PA, and so if she picks Shapiro as VP, that all but kind of seals Pennsylvania for the Dems, and it makes Dave McCormick's job running against Bob Casey that much harder. The funniest part about the dynamic of Josh Shapiro is that he's Jewish, and the left, a certain wing of the left really doesn't like Jews, and those are heavily populated in Minnesota and Michigan. So a Shapiro VP nod would put those two states into jeopardy, because as you saw in 2016, the left is willing to fall on the sword for their, cause. In 2016, all the Bernie bros either stayed home or some of them maybe voted for Trump as a protest vote to the DNC establishment. And the left hasn't changed. We're talking about the Genocide Joe crowd that kind of forced Joe to step down. So, but picking Tim Walz, I mean, hey, it satisfies that base. It satisfies the radical leftists, the progressives. They like him, but this is a guy who didn't do anything to stop the riots in the George Floyd riots, as I mentioned earlier, with regard to Britain. This guy is radical on transgender stuff, transgender issues. He's a nut job. He really is. He's crazy. But thank you, Kamala. As a Republican, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, yeah, a Shapiro pick would have put Minnesota, Michigan in jeopardy. But it would have been probably the smarter strategic pick. You also had Andy Bashir, those types, other candidates, rather. But, yeah. So I don't know if Shapiro would have won the map for her, but it would have helped them out strategically, kind of make it harder for Trump. Because all Trump basically needs to do is win Pennsylvania, and with the current state of the essentially, if Trump gets Pennsylvania with the state of the other states, he would basically take the whole thing. But if she picks Shapiro and they get Pennsylvania, then Trump needs to pick off Wisconsin, Michigan, or any combination of the three. Regarding Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But with Tim Walz, man, what a great way to alienate all the country. And another interesting thing about this dynamic is that this was kind of what was going to be interesting regarding Bernie, regarding the 2016 election, if it was Bernie and Trump. Because politically, Bernie and Trump are actually very similar. They're both anti-establishment. They're populists. Bernie's left wing, Trump is right wing, but they both rail against the same people. They both rail against an establishment. Where Trump labels the establishment as the bureaucrats in Washington, the Minnesota state, the deep state, that sort of thing. Bernie Sanders views the elite as the corporations that are paying the establishment Democrats to not do much, and Republicans to not do much and to keep status quo. And so it would have been really interesting to see a Bernie-Trump election in 2016. I'm not really sure what that would have done for the Overton window, but that would have been interesting. But right now we kind of see that, where Kamala really had an opportunity to really set herself up really well here. Because you could argue Kamala had a really good opportunity here to really kind of shape up her position regarding things with Shapiro. If she picks Shapiro, he's more of a moderate. So Kamala's already pretty liberal. So having someone like Kamala and someone like Shapiro on a ticket would be a really good moderating ticket. Whereas Vance is very much like Trump. He's a MAGA guy. He's very much like Trump. He appeals right to Trump's base, and he doesn't really bring in a lot of other people compared to someone like Youngkin or any other of the candidates. But with her picking Walz is pretty much neutral at this point. She really could take a lead with Shapiro being a moderate ticket with the all MAGA ticket. But she picked Walz. She doubled down. Very polarizing ticket. a very polarizing election. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, Kamala Harris picking Tim Walz. Thank you very much. The next headline that kind of crashed this week was the stock market. Monday took a big dive. We saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average crash under 3875. We saw the Dow Jones crash under 38,750, and Japan's market dropped over 5,000. The Nasdaq took at one point a 1,000 point dive. So this event was really complicated. I don't know if it was a coincidence or have anything to do with the fact that we had a jobs report that was pretty bad, not too far before the market crashed a little bit or took a little bit of a dive, where you saw unemployment unexpectedly rise. And you saw the jobs reports not come back as much as was forecasted. But I was reading someone's post on X where they talked about how Japan's Federal Reserve type, what they have over there, had the interest rates really low for a long time. And so what people would do is they would borrow copious amounts of yen to kind of exchange for different currencies and really make a lot of money. But Japan recently raised interest rates like 0.25%, something very little here, but to them was really large. And a lot of those loans that were taken out had to come due. And so with that, even that small of an interest rate hike, it caused a lot of mayhem to ensue regarding people being able to repay loans and things like that. So that's what contributed largely to Japan's market drop. But I still do think that the U.S. economy is kind of standing on a house of cards right now. People overly point at the stock market to be, this is something that Bill Maher frequently does. He goes, I don't know what people going on about the economy. The stock market's at all-time highs, all that kind of stuff. And the stock market's really good for showing like profits and stuff like that. It's not emblematic of the quality of life necessarily. It's just about how good the companies are doing. So I don't really like having a stock market used as a godsend in terms of economic indicators for success or for prosperity. I would rather have a lower stock market with an economy that's bustling with families and all that kind of stuff. So it just kind of underscored the fact that everyone kind of leans on the United States regarding economically and financially. Everyone kind of is under the United States' influence. I will give the left one thing, which is that the right has been going on about recession for the past couple of years, and it hasn't really happened, but the economy right now is so tense. And it's so sensitive right now. I really think we're on a house of cards. I think one little card, one little blow, and the whole thing comes crashing down. We saw that a little bit with the jobs report that came out, but if it doesn't get bad this year, it'll get really bad next year. With a lot of loans having to come back with the high interest rates, which is going to be interesting to see what the Fed does. The Fed is JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are already wagering that the Fed is going to cut rates in September into December, which I hope. I can't see it anything other than trying to salvage an economy around election time to help out Kamala as much as they can, but we'll see what happens. Market's very sensitive. I think it's a house of cards, and one little blow, one little puff of air, and the whole thing will come crashing down. Next line item is the Trump debate agreement on Thursday. We got some significant news. Donald Trump, during his press conference, said that he would agree to the debate on September 10th, broadcast on ABC. This is kind of, just to see how the two candidates between Kamala and Trump are going to handle the debate season, this election cycle. I think for the left, as much as they can keep Kamala out of the limelight and have her talk as least as possible, the better for her. I don't think people are like her if they actually listen to her. But now there are apparently a lot of threats coming from both camps that, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think Trump wins in the debates. I'm interested to see how the VP debates go between Vance and Walz two Midwestern guys will, go at it there. That'll be interesting to see. The thing about Trump and ABC is that he's actively suing them. And so I don't begrudge him or blame him for not wanting to be on ABC. Kamala already said recently that she wasn't going to do the Fox News debate, which is a shame, but it does look kind of weird from Trump if people don't really look into things, that he said that he wouldn't do ABC. Now he says he is doing ABC. Looks kind of flippity-floppity. But I think Kamala and the DNC are going to try and play this game as much as they can to kind of come up with some reason why they can't do a debate or do as little debates as possible. Because, like I said, anything that shows Kamala out there, people will go away. Which goes into the next line item, which is a lot of the polling is starting to favor Kamala a little bit. And I tell a lot of people this. If you go back and watch my other video on the undemocratic coup by the Democratic Party, Democrats undemocratic coup, before Joe went out, you were going to see Trump doing really well in the polls, to kind of be like a squeezing Joe out kind of a thing. Like, hey, look, Joe, look at the polls. You're down, get out. And then as soon as they switched Joe Biden, seeing a really big spike in whoever the DNC was going to nominate to be, or I guess in this point, to be the nominee. So it doesn't surprise me that this is happening. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I think that this doesn't mean that Trump doesn't take it that seriously. Trump should be campaigning like he's down by 5, even though he's not. You can't risk underestimating the risk of the left winning in November. And so you have to work to, swap the vote. Too big to rig is a big messaging in his campaign, which I think is good. I think that the polls are going to be very, not dishonest, but improper in this sense, I guess, in the sense that they're not showing the true sentiment of the people. It's going to be artificial, manufactured support for Kamala. It's all going to try and make it out to be, Trump has no chance. Kamala's winning. Kamala is a front runner. It's Kamala's to lose. When in reality, it has always been Trump's to lose. The Harris campaign is always playing defense here. So is Biden. Kamala Harris was the border czar. Don't let them, fool you on that. People know who she is, and they're going to try to tell us that the emperor has no clothes. The media is going to try and mislead us and tell us that our eyes are deceiving us. So, polls favoring Kamala Harris doesn't surprise me one bit. And then the last line item for the episode today is Kamala Harris's silence. It wasn't until I was actually editing the script late last night that Kamala Harris finally spoke to the media, talking about just Trump's agreement to the debate on the 10th and her satisfaction, Trump's decision, and then she said that she'd be open to scheduling additional debates. We'll see about that. But Kamala Harris was silent from the media ever since being nominated or chosen to de facto be the nominee. She didn't say anything to the media for weeks. So that's a little surprising. But it underscores the fact that DNC does not want Kamala to get out there and talk. The less she is interacting with the public, the better. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the DNC keeps kind of covering Kamala's mouth, make sure that she doesn't say much of anything. They know that they got the media behind them to give her the out for interviews or press conferences or anything like that. While on the other hand, Trump literally had a press conference that was over an hour yesterday on Thursday. So if you look at the two candidates, one is ready and eager to talk to the media for an hour, maybe over an hour, while the other is ducking it as much as she can. And she's trying to stay out of the limelight. She doesn't want to be recognized or noticed or to be known to people, while the other guy is actively campaigning and going out. He's going on live streams. He's going on podcasts. J.D. Vance went on the Full Send podcast. Trump went on Aiden Ross. And he had a video with Brian DeChambeau, golfer. And so one of them is doing these, and Kamala is trying to stay out of the limelight as much as possible. She's trying to pander to Georgians with a faux Southern drawl. So I think that it's obviously a orchestrated, targeted thing, strategic, and I guess more power to them, I guess, in a weird way. But Kamala Harris, silent, doesn't surprise me one bit. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the like button. If you guys support and help the channel grow, please subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date with all my uploads. Finally, whether you agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I look forward to engaging with you guys in respectful and thoughtful discussions. With that said, I'll see you guys next video. See ya.